Hey Ben,
Yes, my friend.
you know what we're talking about today?
Of course I do.
We're talking about how to discipline students.
No, we're not. We're talking about something else completely.
What?
Look at the word.
How to disciple students. There it is.
Instant romance. I mean, instant romance.
Hey guys, thanks for watching Youth Ministry TV. My name is David Hansen.
And my name is Ben Fawcett.
And today on the show, we are talking about how to disciple students.
Not discipline, right?
Not discipline. I wish we still could. I wish we still lived in the days where we could spank these kids and not feel guilty about it. Like they talked during one of our messages and we could just like drag them to the back of the room.
And take out a ruler?
And Adrian Peterson them.
Oh,
Is that bad?
Can we say that? It's all good.
That's all right.
So did you grow up in a house with physical discipline?
I got absolutely spanked when I was a
too.
little kid.
I got worked.
My dad would be like, you want the belt, you want the spoon. My mom would be like, wait till your dad gets home. My dad would just come home and be like, what happened? And I was like, we didn't even do anything today. But he just comes home expecting to spank somebody.
Did you ever get the stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about?
That's
Did you
a
ever
good
get
one. That's a good one.
Oh,
That's a good
that
one.
put so much fear in me because I was already like, I thought you already gave me something to cry about.
My mom broke multiple wooden spoons over my brother's butt. And so, yeah, we got disciplined all the time. But today we're not talking about discipline. We should probably talk about it in a future episode.
Yeah. This is something better, more encouraging.
Absolutely. This is
more productive.
how to disciple students. And so the first thing that we want to break apart is even where to start. When a student comes up to you, when you engage a student, what does the beginning of a discipleship relationship look like?
Yeah, this was interesting because we just went through this as a staff, remember?
We did. We did.
Our teaching pastor, Doug Hankins, walked us through, whose book was it? Bill Hybels' book of discipling. And you could see all the different thoughts and philosophies around discipleship that started to come out from the staff. So it's really interesting to kind of dig in and just kind of start to look at hey, how do you disciple? And is there really a better way to disciple and an inferior way to disciple?
Yeah, and then you look at the way it began in Scripture, both with the rabbinical system and then with Jesus. And so how those two things are different, how students would go up to rabbis and ask, hey, can I be your disciple? Can I be your pupil? But then Jesus flipping that over, and he went out and he called people to follow him. And there's not a right way or a wrong way. I think today we adapt both of those.
Yeah.
But looking at where to start a discipleship relationship is important.
Yeah, because students are going to be a little bit different than adults.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense? And there's pros to that and there's cons to that. We're not really going to get into the pros and cons of students versus adults in terms of discipling. Just more how we go about discipling students and how we think this could be a equipping tool for you and to just kind of give you a better, I want to say, structure about how you will approach students for discipleship.
Yeah. And as you begin, the first question that you want to ask is, why are we meeting? Why? If you don't know why you're meeting, don't ask a student to disciple him. Don't let them ask you to be discipled. First, figure out why you're going to meet. What is the point of meeting?
Yeah, because I think, don't you, and you tell me if you agree with this or not, I think a lot of that, why you're meeting, will have to do with not just how you're going to teach them or what you're going to teach them, but also the length of the time you're going to meet with them.
Absolutely.
Right? Because some might be really seasonal, like, hey, let's meet for 6 to 8 weeks. Your parent wants me to meet with you, right? You get a lot of that.
Yep.
Let's meet for 6 to 8 weeks. And then others will be a student coming up and saying, hey, I really need discipleship. I don't know how to read the Bible. I want to know how to grow in my faith. And you're like, great, let's do this for a year and see what happens.
Absolutely. And so start with the why. Is a parent coming to you and saying, you really need to meet with Billy because Billy's been out of control. He's absolutely doing terrible in school. He's got no faith walk whatsoever. And so can you please meet with him and set him on the straight path? That's a very different game plan than a student who comes up to you and says, like you said, I want to know the Bible.
Yeah.
I don't know the Bible. I want to know the Bible. Can you teach me to read the Bible?
Yeah.
And then there's some students who come up to you and they don't know what they want. They just know they want to meet, and they don't even know what that looks like because they don't know your plan, they don't know your heart, but what they do know is that they want somebody to pour into them. And so I like those because it kind of leaves the canvas open for you to direct them where you want to go, right?
That's the ideal one.
But they're just hungry, right?
Yeah, that's the ideal one. That's the one that I think we all, as pastors, really want to pour into.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about the parent-driven one because
let's start with that.
you get those, right?
I
you
get
have
those,
a lot more experience than I do in that one.
All the time, parents come up to me with the troubled kids. I don't know how else to call it. I mean, I love them.
That's a good way.
Just as much
Troubled.
as I love the other ones. But with the troubled students who are going through difficult times, parents come up to me and say, can you please meet with them? Can you please set them straight? And so what I usually do is I come to an agreement with the parents and I say, okay, this is why I'm meeting with them. I'm going to meet with them to assess, one, where they're at spiritually, and then to see how where they're at spiritually is affecting where they're at in life right now. Essentially what I'm trying to help the student understand is because they're not holding Christ as preeminent, because they're not chasing after Jesus Christ, they've gotten to themselves in a lot of difficult situations that will be difficult to get out of, and some of those situations will have consequences, will have repercussions. And so that's my whole goal, is to say, hey, this is the situation you're in. I think you got here because at some point in time you failed to keep Christ as the center of your life, right?
Yeah.
And so I let the student know that, and I let the parent know that, and I tell the parents, hey, we're going to meet for this period of time. And so depending on the student, depending on how difficult I think it will be, I set it anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks. Sometimes it's shorter, it's 4 weeks. It just depends on the student, right? And so start with a beginning date and figure out an end date. Because the last thing you want to do is leave it open-ended and there's no goal, there's no finish line, because then it can just drag on and on and on and on, and you never really know, are we meeting certain benchmarks that we hope to get to? What I oftentimes will do is say, hey, we're going to meet for the next 6 weeks, and we're going to reevaluate after 6 weeks. And if after 6 weeks, you're not doing some of these very basic things, even meeting, right? And so what I do is say, hey, we're going to meet for 6 weeks. We're going to reassess after 6 weeks. If you're doing these things that I'm asking you to do, we'll continue to grow in this discipleship relationship. But if not, then maybe we need to find someone else who can empower you and encourage you to push on.
I think my first question out of that to you would be, how often are you communicating with the parent? Since the parent came to you and said, will you please start meeting with my student because they're having problems or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
What does that process look like of you communicating to the parent? How often is that, and how are you engaging them and bringing them in? That's
a great question. Most of the time, I engage with them, whether it be via a phone call or a text message, the day of after I meet with that student. And so what oftentimes happens is parents usually are pretty proactive and say, hey, are you meeting with so-and-so today? I'll respond back, yes, I'm meeting with them today. Is there anything I need to know about before we enter into this difficult conversation? The parent, inevitably, if it's a student who's going through trouble, will say, yes, they were disrespectful to me. Yes, they're not doing their homework. Yes, they were disrespectful to their coach or something like that. And they'll give me kind of some ammunition to bring out in our discussion time. And then afterward, I'll say, hey, this is what we talked about. This is what we expressed. This is how and where you can push them, right? That doesn't happen every week. Sometimes I don't follow up with the parents afterward, but at least every other week I'm following up, whether it be phone call or text message.
All right, so a constant stream of communication,
Yeah.
because in that type of process, well, anything we're doing with students, we want to keep the parents involved, but in that one, probably a little bit more proactive in reaching out to the parent and just
Yeah.
keeping them informed on what's going on.
Definitely. That one is, you will need a high level of parent involvement and connection versus some of these other ones where students are coming to you asking to be discipled, and you're not necessarily following up with parents every week saying, this is what we talked about, because these students are coming to you for spiritual development and investment, and you don't necessarily need to be like telling the parents every single thing that y'all are talking about. So.
Yeah. One last question about this, because this is the one where I think I would need a lot of direction on too. So what happens if you say, hey, we're going to, you're talking to the student, you're like, let's meet for 8 weeks, and the student's like, okay, and you're asking them to do all these things.
Yeah.
And then after the 8-week period, they haven't done any of those things,
Yep.
right? And they're just like a blank slate. But the parent comes to you and they're like, please keep meeting, right?
Yes.
The student obviously isn't engaging, obviously wants nothing to do. And I know this has happened,
Yeah.
but the parent's like, no, please keep meeting. What does that look like? Because
Yeah.
let's face it, whether you have many people on your staff or it's just you, time is precious.
Absolutely.
Time is precious.
And so the last thing we want to do is give up on a student. Right?
Yeah.
I'm never going to write a student off and be like, I'm done with you, you're banished, you're exiled, you can't even
Banished!
you can't even come back to the youth ministry anymore. But However, I don't want to waste my time. Like, because what I'm doing by meeting with the student is most of the time saying, okay, I'm not going to either one, meet with another student because they're asking for discipleship, or two, intentionally engage a student who also would benefit from being discipled.
Right.
And so that discipleship time is precious. And as we know, our time with students is limited. They're at school from morning until late afternoon.
Yeah.
Most of the time they can't meet till after practice, something like that. So I literally have a window anywhere from like 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock to meet with students. And if I have to go as far as 7, that's tough because now you're infringing on family time, right? You're infringing on my family time, which is also difficult. So I have a limited window of how many students I can meet from 4 o'clock to, let's say, 6 o'clock. And so if a student meets with me for 6 weeks and there's absolutely no growth, they're not responding in any way, shape, or form, what I usually do is say, hey, it's clear that you're not receiving this. I don't know why. Is there anything I can do for you? Is there anything I'm not doing for you? Is there anything, any steps that we could take so that you will actually begin to do what I'm asking you to do? And I'll get feedback from the student. Then I'll be very frank with him. I'm usually frank with him up front. I don't wait till week 6 and say, we're not meeting anymore. I usually, week 4, hey, I've noticed you're not doing anything. Week 5, hey, I really noticed you're not doing anything. And in fact, if you haven't done your reading before next week, we're not going to meet next week.
Yeah.
That's going into week 6. Then they show up week 6 and they still don't have anything done. I'm like, hey, it's clear that there's no fruit from this. And I want to see you grow. I want to see you change. I want to see you become more like Jesus. But it's clear that's not happening. So let's do this. Let's find someone who can encourage you and continue to disciple you. Or 2, let's take a break. You reevaluate whether this is something that you need, and then we'll get back to it. If a parent comes to me, that's a completely different story, right? If a parent comes to you, like, to your door, like, please don't stop meeting with them. Like, they need it. They're actually benefiting from it. I know you can't see that, but behind the scenes, they're really benefiting from that, because that's happened a few times as well, where I'm like, this student's getting nothing out of it. And the parent at home was like, hey, they were more respectful. You know, I don't know what you said, but it definitely
Some
helped.
growth.
Yeah, there was some growth. And I'm like, oh, okay. What I'll do is I'll extend it by anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, here's the deal. I'm not seeing that, so I'll meet with them for another 2 to 4 weeks. We'll assess during that period whether anything is happening, any growth is happening, and then we'll decide after those 2 to 4 weeks.
A mini test run, if you will.
Mini test run. But at the same time, don't let students waste your time. Don't let parents waste your time. I know that sounds harsh and heartless, but it's true, because you're sacrificing that time that could be spent pouring into another student, maybe a student leader who will then take that and run with it, bringing other people to Christ because of how much you're pouring into them. So you kind of have to keep that balance and keep that in mind.
Well said. And I always think about the parable of the sower, right? When
Yep.
it just comes to ministry in total, and especially meeting discipleship time, because like you said, that time is precious and it's small. And I would much rather be out in the fertile fields than pulling the weeds or any of those
Much
type
rather
of things.
be harvesting with students who are hungry for it and
Yes.
want it, rather than pulling the weeds and just sorting through, because the first conversations with those students are just pulling apart layers of hurt and frustration and anger and misappropriated value. I mean, you're trying to pull all this apart, saying, what do you hold as a supreme value in your life? What is most important? And most of the time you figure out very quickly that's not Christ. And so then you enter into that period of saying, okay, do you see how the things of this world are not as valuable as being found in Jesus Christ? And having to just completely reorient that system. That is very different than a student who's hungry for discipleship and wanting to grow and saying, yes, I get this, I just need help. You know.
Yeah, both are ministry, and it's kind of where we're called, so it's just the reality of it. But that's very good wisdom and very good advice.
Yep.
Let's switch gear and let's talk about the one that we all want to do as student pastors, and that's get the student that comes up to us proactively and says, I want to grow in my faith, and I have no idea really how to do those type of things. Can you start meeting with me?
Yeah, those are great. I love the blank slate.
It's awesome. I'm always like, yes.
I'm hungry. So where do you start? How do you start with students who come up to you? Because you've begun one recently, yesterday. You said you met with a student who came up and said that very thing. Hey, I want to start being discipled.
I got a new one. So really, after the first year of ministry, I kind of learned that the max I can do per semester, because sometimes things are just seasonal, right? Per semester, really the max I can do is 5. And anything over 5 is too much for me and becomes a big burden, and it starts to lessen my enthusiasm, I guess I would say, about approaching those. But
And there's a difference between students you're discipling and students you just meet with.
Oh,
Right?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
not like
totally,
we're stopped
totally.
meeting with other students or grabbing coffee or
Yeah,
lunch or
that's
whatever it
always
is with
going on.
those.
That's
That's
always
always happening. But these are regular, scheduled, not going to miss it appointments.
yeah, there's what I call, the day-to-day ministry, and then there's your regular ministry, and you're still going to go off to groups. You go to a Bible study at a school, and you're still going to go visit different Bible studies. You're still going to do small groups. You're still going to be writing curriculum, writing your sermons, meeting with students. But then you have your discipleship times, those one-on-ones. And so really, I've kind of capped it at 5 per semester. And I always start off with what I call the prelim meeting, where they come to me and I say, hey, great, let's meet. We find the time and we find the day. That's not necessarily the time and day we're going to continue in, but that's just the first time we can meet.
Yeah, that's good.
And that's really me laying down my expectations of what I expect from them as a disciple, right?
Okay.
As a disciple of Jesus Christ, this is what I expect. And it has nothing to do with their maturity level. It has everything to do with their devotion and hunger to commit and to do those things. And so I'm frank, like, hey, we're going to pray and you're going to pray with me. This isn't going to be one of those things where I just pray and then you leave. We're both going to pray and you're going to pray aloud. You're going to do the Bible reading assignments I give you and you're going to come back and you're going to discuss those things. And if it doesn't happen, I need to know why. And so I'm really frank in laying out my expectations and it also in what I offer, right? I really frank I want to build a relationship with you to disciple you towards Christ. I don't want to build a relationship with you to have fun with you. That's a byproduct of ministry. I think ministry is fun either way.
But this isn't a buddy-buddy time. It's not
This isn't buddy-buddy.
We're not meeting together so we can become best friends.
Absolutely. We're not going to sit there and talk about the newest video game or any of those things. Now, I might do that to build a relationship, but that's small on those things. And you guys understand that. And then I ask them for what their expectations are, and then we go into the next phase, which is really me giving them this questionnaire I've built about their faith, writing down their faith statement, and just asking them kind of deeper questions. And it's okay if they write, I don't know. That's okay. I just need to know where they're at. The questionnaire has nothing to do with if I'm going to meet with them. It has everything to do with how I'm going to approach them and teach them. And then I ask them to go home and pray, and then I pray over it, and then I tell them to text me within the next 48 hours to let me know if they want to go forward.
That's good.
And so I got the text last night from the newest student. He will be the 5th, so I'm capped now, which is nice until summertime.
But I like that you do that, where you assess them, bring them in, make them answer all these questions, and then put it back on them. Hey, this is what I have to offer. This is what I'm going to do. If you want this, let me know. I'm not forcing you to do it. In fact, it's kind of the same thing. Don't waste my time if you don't agree to what I'm putting before you, saying this is what discipleship with me looks like, then maybe it's not for you.
Too many mistakes made my first year when it came to discipleship, right? Too many mistakes of just, even if they're not doing anything, just keep pouring. Really just draining myself, but also what we talked about earlier, taking attention away from students that are really going to thrive. And again, this isn't about rejecting people. This isn't about judging people. This is just simply about being the best steward of your time, because your time is precious, and allocating it towards that fertile field. And sometimes you got to pull some weeds to get them to that fertile field place, and we understand that. We're not saying we want the easy ones. We're just saying we want the ones that are hungry. And a lot of times, let's face it, a big chunk of discipling students is teaching them what devotion means, right? Teaching them what commitment means. So it's not like we're getting just these golden students and they're like, yes, check. I'll meet with you.
Technically, earlier we said the best ones are the harvest. Truly, the best discipleship times or the best discipleship students are the ones who come in broken, absolutely broken.
Oh, definitely.
Get to a point of understanding they're broken, and then we go into the harvest season. I mean, that's the super ideal, right?
Yes. And I will also say this, and you tell me what you think about this. The earliest I will meet with somebody in terms of a full semester of discipling, a full semester, not just a 2-week or a 3-week or 6-week, is the earliest I will meet is 9th grade.
Okay.
Absolutely, that's the earliest I will meet with, or the youngest I will meet with a student for a full semester. Because I've found anything before 9th grade, and again, there's always exceptions, they do not have the self-awareness yet. They're totally self-conscious, but they have no self-awareness yet to understand that they have to own their own faith. They're still piggybacking off of other people's faith. What do you think about that?
We still meet with them. That's I say we don't have meetings with them and encourage them.
It's more nonchalant, right?
It might be more nonchalant, or it might be for a set period of time, rather than I'm meeting with you for an entire semester. And if you're a junior high pastor out there, we'd love to hear from you. Comment down below on the YouTube and let us know, how do you do that do you meet with junior high students for a whole semester? What does that look like? In no way are we trying to diminish junior high students because we have
No.
3 grades of them. And so
This is just us.
We love
This is
them.
me personally. This is me personally.
And I agree with you to some extent because that's a long period of time. Are there exceptions? Absolutely. Is there going to be the golden ticket out there student who you're like, oh my goodness, you're a 7th grader and you're processing through deep theology and doctrine. Wow, yeah, I'm going to grab you young and we're going to do this, right?
Yeah.
I have a student like that who I started with them in between 7th and 8th grade. And when I started, and we've continued that process of discipleship all the way through. So you will have certain students who are capable of that, but understanding the majority might not be.
Yeah, and hear everything we're saying because parents come into play. If a parent of a junior high kid says, please meet with them, you're going to do that. If your small group leader comes to you and says, hey, this is out of my depth, this is out of my range, can you start meeting with them? You're going to do that. And definitely, if you're a junior high specialized pastor, we would love to hear from you because admittedly so, that's kind of our weakness, is more towards that junior high area. Not to say that we don't give them love and we don't do junior high ministry. It's just most of what we do is geared more towards the 8th and up, I'll even say, right? That 8th and up type of deal.
Yeah. So, and one thing I've been impressed with Ben, what he does is not only does he bring them in, lay down hey, this is expectations, this is what you can expect, this is what discipleship with me will look like, but then you have a very structured, almost catechism that you're working through. Can you share kind of about that? And
Definitely.
Maybe one day he'll actually finish it, package it all together, and we'll give it to you guys.
That's what you're always razzing me about.
Yeah.
It's like, is this thing ever going to get done? And I'm like, I don't know. It keeps growing. It keeps evolving.
But you have a very structured process. I mean, you're always adding on to the end of it, but you've got a beginning line.
I do have a beginning line.
You've started the students down the marathon, and where they'll end, who knows, right? But you're kind of putting together a structure for a catechism, a structured idea of, hey, this is what I want to teach students during this discipleship time.
I think the thought process behind it is to make disciples, not make a church attender and not make somebody that's loyal to Fusion Student Ministry, but somebody that's going to continue in their faith in college and young adulthood and adulthood and fatherhood and husbanding or wifing, any of those type of things.
Husbanding
and wifing.
And wifing.
Wow. But yeah, I mean, I do have the structure behind it because I think I came across it, what did I tell you about it, like 2 years ago or something, right? So I just noticed that a lot of the 12th graders, we used to do a thing where when they're 12th grade, I would get with them and we'd start walking them through things. David and I intimately would start getting with them more. And we started to notice that there's some gaps, and I really started to notice like a lot of these people don't even have a basic idea of Genesis, which is kind of crazy. Like I would ask them, hey, who knows who Abraham is? And the only thing they knew was the Father Abraham song, which I don't even know. This guy sings it all the time. I don't even know the Father Abraham song.
Great song.
But they had no idea who Abraham was or his promises, and really just how amazing those promises are and how faithful God was to Abraham through those promises, and how that just continues on all the way up into the cross and continues into our lives today.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of disturbing, for me. I was like, whoa, these students who are seniors and who do have faith and who do love Jesus really don't have a good concept of the basics of the gospel. So I started a curriculum, and that's building into a catechism now called the Basic Gospel. And it starts with Genesis 1, 2, and 3 because I have found, and you guys too, in Genesis 1 through 3, you have the total encapsulation of the gospel. God creating, God bringing about a purpose-filled man, man falling into depravity, the promise of Christ, the redemption of Christ, all through Genesis 1 through 3. So I wanted to give them that platform and then build on it as we went out through the Bible.
That's good. That's good. And here's something else that you should be thinking about. What is very difficult and one of the biggest mistakes that I have ever made in discipling a student is not condensing and unifying my discipleship material. I mean, because if you think about it, as a youth pastor, most youth pastors, you're having to write a message possibly for Sunday, you're having to write small group curriculum for Wednesdays or your midweek meeting, and then you're telling me that you have to write a different discipleship lesson or be prepared for a different discipleship lesson for every single different student that you're meeting with. And so if that's 5, you're trying to come up with 5 different lessons for 5 different students. Like, that's exhausting.
That sounds horrible.
Like, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
And so what I love about what you're doing with this catechism is that you kind of have this system that you're running every single student through. You're not trying to reinvent the wheel with every student, figure out, okay, well, you want to go through the book of Revelation, and you want to go through the book of 1 John, and you want to go through the book of Matthew and just begin in the basic Gospels. Like, how am I supposed to be prepared for all of this? But if you have a unified discipleship program saying, hey, regardless of when they come in, they will jump into this catechism. They will jump into this timeline. And here's the deal. I've already been through this timeline multiple times, so it's not hard for me to look back on the first lesson in my catechism or the fifth lesson in my catechism or the 8th lesson in my basic gospel curriculum.
Yeah.
I can very quickly pick this stuff back up, jump in, and be prepared for it. Right?
That's definitely the advantage of it, is it's gonna take a burden off of you. I don't know about you guys. We both love writing material. So if you do love writing material, there's nothing wrong with spending an afternoon clearing your schedule, whether even on a weekend, if and putting your headphones in and just going to town and just starting to build a structure to make it easier on you. And I think also the advantage of having that catechism or that basic gospel curriculum is it allows me to segment everything into semesters.
Yeah. That's good.
So I've gotten away from like committing to year-rounders, right? It's like we will meet this semester and then we'll evaluate at the end of the semester. And if the student decides at the end of the semester, hey, that was awesome, but the second semester is too crazy for me, or this wasn't what I thought it was, hey, that's awesome. I got to spend time with them and get to build a relationship with them, and I'll continue to seek that relationship out through different means. But the catechism and the basic gospel is going to allow you to just kind of break things into semester chunks and have themes for those semesters too.
That's good.
It's relieving.
That's
good. Is that a good word? Relieving.
Absolutely. And in addition, having one process for students will free you up to do relational ministry with other students besides the one that you're discipling. I mean, because if you're spending all that time writing and developing curriculum, what you're not doing is setting up meetings with other students, meeting with other students, having connections with other students, getting out of the office, right? Not spending all your time in the office just doing preparation and not seeking to go and do ministry. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Face-to-face ministry.
Yes.
And so you can find yourself doing hours and hours and hours of preparation for those meetings and your Sunday morning, but what you're not doing is the one-on-one meeting with students and doing actually ministry for anyone beyond those 5 people.
Yeah, because we're not writers.
Yeah.
I just want to be prepared so that when I do have those opportunities to meet, I'm not, taxing my brain and not listening to the student, but actually in that moment listening to the student because there's a clear direction of where it's going to go.
Absolutely. So this was a
very long, and there's more to discipleship.
Long episode. This is
so much more to it.
Scratching the surface. And so let's recap very, very quickly where we've been in this.
We need to.
1, know why you're meeting. Figure out why you're meeting with these students. Don't just go into it without knowing why you're meeting. Determine a period of time in which you will meet with this student. Come up with a game plan of what you will be doing with that student. Preferably make that united, make that one catechism or one discipleship curriculum that you can walk through so that you're not creating a bunch of separate resources for students.
Yeah, and it's okay if it's seasonal.
Yep.
It's okay if you just do a 4-weeker or a 6-weeker or a full semester. Don't be restricted by timeline and don't get overburdened by timeline, thinking it has to be long. It can be seasonal.
And don't be afraid to shut down a discipleship relationship if it is not being fruitful.
That's always the hardest one.
It's tough.
As well as telling students, right now I can't meet formally, but let's try to find times to meet for coffee or come by your house.
You just spit everywhere. We'll pretend nobody saw that.
I didn't see it.
Okay. This is a good place to end.
We're going to have to edit that out.
No, we're not. We're leaving that in. Thank you guys so much for joining us on Youth Ministry TV. Comment down below on YouTube what you like about discipleship, lessons that you have learned about discipleship. Some of you who have been in the game for a long time, what are the biggest mistakes that you've made? What have been the most helpful tips that you have ever heard about discipling students? Comment down below. We'd love to share that with other people. If you'll comment down below, we'll tweet that junk out and make sure that people know
Tweet that junk out.
I guess I should call it junk if it's their advice. We'll tweet those amazing lessons out so that other people can be encouraged and equipped and trained by you. Thank you so much. If you haven't subscribed to Youth Ministry TV, do that right now. We will see you guys in the next episode.
Hasta luego.
Whoa, you like, don't even act like you don't like Arnold Schwarzenegger. You really want to say,
Hasta luego.
oh my gosh. We'll see you guys later.